probably the most memorable thing was at the very beginning of the SLAM operation that I talked about before. We had been put in to relieve or pull out the survivors of a platoon that had been overrun the previous night. And when I got into the area, they had been a reconnaissance team in there. They had taken a wounded American. We extracted him. I was flying chase medic the day we pulled him out. They put a platoon in to reinforce that reconnaissance team, and the platoon got overrun. And then we went in with the SLAM company to pull out the survivors of the platoon. And when we got in there, there was an American member of the original reconnaissance team and a couple of his mountain yards on the riverbank. And I went in on like the 5th helicopter in the first flight, and it was going to take 8 helicopters, 2 trips to Dak To to get all 100 of us in that were with the SLAM company. And I knew the American that was on the reconnaissance team, and I immediately said to him, I says, you know, if anybody's still alive up on the RON site across the river, they probably need medical assistance real quick. And he immediately said, I'm going up there, and he said to one of his mountain yards, come with me. He went to the captain in charge of the SLAM, says, I'm going up to the RON, and he just headed across the river and made the way. And several others, Robert Howard, who ended up later being a Medal of Honor recipient, volunteered to go. Of course, I went with him as the medic because I was the medic. And the good feeling that came out of that is there was an American alive up there. It was a black NCO that had been wounded seriously, and he had about 19 wounds in his body. And there were some major, cuts and gunshot wounds in him. And while I was treating him, I immediately put an IV in him, used my Ringer's lactate up to get his blood pressure up. And while I was putting dressings on him, he said that just after it got light, the North Vietnamese came through the RON and shot everybody that was dead. There were 5 dead indigenous personnel in the foxholes and this one live American. And they said they came over to him and they shot him in the head. And he had 2 small wounds on his forehead, one here and one here with like a black and blue streak running between it. And the bullet went in one under the skin and just came out. And he played dead. He says, I just played dead. And so we ended up getting him medevaced, and what makes me feel really good, he survived, and he was sent back to Fort Bragg eventually, but he had about 19 wounds in his body, and he survived. When I opened his shirt, there was a pool of about a quart of blood in there with large clots formed in it. And so that's when I knew he was in shock and he needed to get his blood pressure raised. But he survived, and it gives you a feeling like, boy, I can keep anybody alive. But then you have another instance where somebody wounded what appears to be much more minorly will die on you. So it gets to be like, boy, there's no justification in this. Sometimes the worst wounded survived and the least looking wounded die, So it gave a realization of the madness of war.